Welcome to the Director's Commentary podcast for Heart, the City Beneath. I'm Grant Howitt, and I'm joined by Christopher Taylor, and we wrote the Heart RPG. In these episodes, we'll be going through the text of the book and discussing how we came to design the game. For more information on Heart and our other titles, go to rrdgames.com. Welcome to the world of Heart. Please turn to page 121 in your copybooks. The eagle-eyed, eared, nosed among you will notice that we've skipped a chapter, which is the running the game chapter. And we did this because we couldn't come up with anything interesting to say about it.
The running the game chapter is essentially this director's commentary.
Yeah.
But not as pointed to each section. It's a guide and it's tips and it's like, well, I hope you do okay. The section.
One of the challenges that I faced, that I sort of set myself when I wrote the chapter, was let's break this down for people, not only for people who'd never run a role-playing game before, and people who'd never run Heart before, people who've never run a story game before, so people who've run D&D.
Yes.
And trying to get across to them, like, hey, so there's nothing wrong with D&D, there's nothing wrong with story games, there's a slightly different mindset you need to approach them by. And hopefully I managed to get that across, just generally in terms of, like, my philosophy of GMing is that the players will always tell you what they want, even if they don't do it directly, and it's your job to give it to them, but in a nasty way. And we actually have mechanics in the game which let them do it directly.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's barely any work to be done whatsoever. Let's talk about the world of Heart.
Yes, and how the world of Heart is completely malleable.
Completely fluid. On page 121, there's a little box out which says, in the briefest possible terms. That's the minimum as far as Heart goes. I think that's the accepted truths, and then from there we start faffing about side to side.
Yeah, so the world of Heart and the landmark section that we'll get to in a bit, which follows it, is all prompts and suggestions and things you can do, and it shows things like scope and that sort of stuff. It is not something you need to memorize.
Absolutely not. It's recommended you don't.
Yeah, and it's not something where you need to go, okay, so this is tier 1, so that would lead to this, and this is the exact map of Heart. And that's why we provide a map that is completely blank. You're meant to build everything yourself.
It was an interesting decision on our part, because Spire is not mapped out super well. Tim did those hugely detailed maps, especially of the Undercity, but those are expressly non-canonical. Like, we set up the Porlocks, there's an in-character guy who makes the maps, and he's never been to Spire. This is all sort of second-hand knowledge that he's working off. They're for inspirational purposes. I think there was some reticence on some of the players of Spire. Were like, well, I don't want players to have to read all of this before they go into this world. And we don't think you need to read all of Spire before you play Spire. It helps if you read the bit that the section you're going to be playing in, but it doesn't matter. You just make it up.
Yeah, it's fine.
We just made it up. But with Heart, we wanted to make that even more fluid and even more loose. So the landmarks in Heart, they don't all exist in any given game.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed that every single one of these is out there.
Yeah, Derelictus is there.
Yeah, Derelictus is the only one that kind of has to be there.
Yeah, and I think past that, you're pretty much you've got free reign to put in whatever you want or whatever you don't want, because the heart is an embodiment of the GM and a tool in creating this world. You can afford to get pretty wacky with it. It will hold up.
Yeah, and you can have the most bizarre things next to each other, and that's fine. They don't need to make logical sense. If you're playing a city building game, you need to put your city next to a river, so it's got trade routes and water and all this sort of stuff. This is the Heart. This is like a weird fever dream. It doesn't have to make geographic or logical sense where things are.
On the subject of weird fever dreams, I'd like to mention art briefly. It's something which I brought in actually towards the end of the process, but I wanted to make it a rule or a guideline that people in Heart make art. Like, you're seen as weird if you don't. And it doesn't have to be, fanciful paintings or what have you, but carvings or songs or liquors whatever, like liqueurs rather than, you know. I think part of the problem you get is like in any sort of mega dungeon where you've got you don't have like a one or two big civilizations knocking about, is everyone just sort of boiling their socks for food.
Yeah.
It's incredibly grim, and while we certainly wanted the grimness there, I think we wanted to show the adaptability of humans, and also like it is possible to have a nice time.
Yeah, like it's not all people waiting around to die. Like these people are living their lives down here in difficult situations, but they're still existing. They're still living and enjoying themselves at times, and they have, as we'll get to later, festivals, and they have ceremonies like marriages and funerals and things. And along with art, they all have like unique fashion. Like each place in Heart will look different just because the people look different. Because they've bought, traded the clothing they wear, and it'll give them a specific style.
Honestly, that's something which we should have written down. But like, what hats do people wear? Do they wear hats? Think about that. I think that like you can show a great deal rather than telling in terms of your fiction, your overall theme, by sort of slapping art on things and saying like, so how are these people expressing the frustrations they're feeling? How are these people making fun of the people in power? How are they celebrating things? And it lets you get out of the idea that this is just a place where you go in to exchange resources for hit points. And it's like, oh, these are people. This is a place which I can interact with, and it will change from time to time. One of the reasons for festivals, and similarly pulses, which are underground seasons, which come in later on page 125, is that they are filters to put over a location you visit multiple times.
Yeah, it means that you can have the same tunnel. Just to put a really like boring location, just a normal tunnel, and then you can change it every time they've gone through it. Like one time, there's bunting because it's nearly Pig's Day.
Pig's Day.
Or it's in the middle of rot and the entire place is fetid and wet and awful, and you can reuse locations but change the tone and theming of what's going on. The World of Heart, like we wrote this after we did the landmarks in the book. This was sort of like we had the landmarks there, then we realised that maybe we needed a bit more. We needed to guide people in a bit more, give them a bit more of an understanding of what the game's about and it's a full summation basically. It's a shorthand, quick reference guide to the Heart. It doesn't go particularly deep, but it gives you a little overview of everything.
And like hits the important things. And I think that like if you are playing, if you're running a game and like sending the PDF to a player and saying, okay, so read from page 121 to 127, and that will give you an overview of what of the setting.
Yeah,
and you don't really need much. Like everything else can be determined by your class. Time was tricky.
Yeah,
time was very hard to work out because there's no days.
Oh, there is, but it's within a localized 1 mile area, you know.
Yeah, there's still bells. Sorry. So we wanted to have the idea that like the closer you get to the Heart, the less there is of time. One, because you're underground, and because time is broadly determined by seasons, by weather, and by day and night. And two, because the Heart's just sort of unpicking time. And we settled on bells, given as much as like that's quite something which Chris was saying earlier was the idea that it's quite a clever way of transmitting data across a large area.
Yeah, because the easiest way to get data across a large area is with light or sound, basically. And light doesn't go around corners, while sound does. And the Heart is nothing if not a convoluted layout.
It's the ultimate convoluted layout, yes.
Yeah. So a bell ringing can tell people over huge areas, possibly even in the next havens, what the time is, and then they can ring the bell, and you get a kind of chain if you wanted to keep everybody on the same clock, as it were.
It also there's a level of like, well, we don't need to hide anymore. We're not we're not trying to shield our position. We're proud of what we've got, and we're like come at us, bro. There's an element of ownership, I think, in Belringer, or at least security. That gives you a way. Basically, we want to have a way for people, like especially for denizens of the Heart, to refer to time in a way which didn't immediately feel jarring. So like, oh, it's been 3 days since anyone's come around here. Well, like we don't have sunrise, so we don't really have days. But like, you could certainly have a place which has like on tier 1, which has a large percentage of people who are traveling back up to the surface occasionally. They'd bring the principle of days down with them, and then have these bells. And so okay, so like there's a morning bell, a noon bell, and a bedtime bell.
Yeah.
And that means that we can sort of keep a vague passage of time and refer to that, so we can say, oh, that was 4 bells ago.
And I admit that in my games, I tend to just use the word day.
I think everyone just uses days, but we couldn't just put that in there.
Yeah.
Maybe next time, maybe for the second edition, we should come up with a way to use days. Like perhaps it's a period of time invented by Lord Anthony Day.
The most important day.
It has nothing to do with sunrise and sunset whatsoever.
Yeah.
I also want to briefly mention the pulses Chris had wrote earlier. Pulses on page 125. I wanted to make these into more. Every time you entered the Heart, it would be in a pulse, and that would have rules which were attached to it. But there was not really any interesting way of doing that without getting too many rules.
Yeah, it just meant that you constantly had to check what was going on with time, and it meant that to some degree, at least, you had to track time.
Very much.
Even
so.
if that was just occasionally checking to see if it changed.
There's a fantastic book called Into the Weird and Wild, which is kind of broadly a supplement for OSR games and D&D games, where it's about going into this massive ancient forest, and it has various rules for seasons and like depending on what sort of moon is up in the sky, that will affect the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, I'm pretty sure it's this book. I'll have to double check later, but it says like, if you have phases of the moon in your game, you absolutely have to keep perfect track of it. You can't just have it as like, oh, I feel like the moon's changing at the moment. No, like it has to be something which you can track and exploit.
Yeah.
We don't have a game which functions like that. I think we've got like one of our fallouts is the pulse changes.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of things in Fallout that changes weather and things like that. So yeah.
But we ended up making them purely decorative, as it were, because there wasn't really it got in the way.
Yeah, it's just a quick way of reskinning a location if you need to. Honestly, on the subject of reskins, the Heart itself gets a section here of descriptions, and they're not true, and also they are.
The most important part of the book gets half a page.
Yeah, like we did not at any point want to define the Heart.
No.
Because if we define the Heart, it takes the mystery out of it. Mm-hmm. It becomes a solved puzzle, and that's not interesting. Two people in the same game, in the same party, can experience the Heart in different ways. And keeping it this amorphous mystery lets both the GM have more leeway. Like, they're not going to contradict themselves because they can just make up a description very quickly. But also it keeps it this, like, unknowable cosmic horror.
Yeah.
It's like in the beginning of a Cthulhu adventure when it's like, oh, what could this monster be? And you go, oh, it's a deep one.
Yeah.
Well, we know that now, so now we know what we're doing.
That was always my problem with Call of Cthulhu, because like I didn't read the books until I think I've been playing for like a year, and then I had a bash at reading the books. And anytime a monster would come up, like half the players would go, oh, it's one of those. Oh, okay. Oh, don't do this. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
Like I was acting much more like a Lovecraft protagonist.
Yes, and going, what the hell is that? It looks awful.
I'm gonna go mad and die and never even think of a woman. No, never even mention one in passing. The unknowable cosmic horror, I think of it, like it lets, by having it as it's everything. It's precisely what you want. It is what you want in a weird alien way. It's huge. It's dealing with, like, we've got primordial soup. We've got a giant eye. We've got a book. We've got a big machine. We've got a kingdom. Like all these things are like conceptually or physically big.
Yeah.
And then you get the chance to go and fuck about with that. But generally, once you hit that, that's probably the end of the game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, pretty much. And like hats off to you at that point.
Well done.
You've won heart, as it were. You wanted to mention the domains in terms of the geography and landmarks.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about domains in character building, because obviously you've got skills, domains, and knacks and that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But they're written out again here in the geography section because, again, it's another way of reskinning something. So if you have the idea, let's say that you want your adventure site to be a library. Big, massive library, right? And if you think of like a London library, you've got an image in your head. Now, if you take that library and put it in a domain, the domain reflavors it. And you can take exactly the same layout, or like, for instance, a dungeon adventure from another game, and drop it into a desolate place, and just all of the corridors and all the rooms are just spread out by 100 foot. Like these enormous yawning areas. And it's all craggy and rocky. Or you make it haven and there's people living there. Like they've occupied this ancient fane. And it lets you change the world around the players. And they get this real sense of moving between locations as you fade through a delve or something, through Warren into technology, into desolate, into wild. There's these thick bands of theme that you can push through, and thick bands of tone and aesthetics. So we listed them all out here with examples of, just quick examples of what you can change things to be.
Yeah, like so whenever I run Heart, and I've run it a lot. I did a lot of playtesting, back before we did the Kickstarter, and a little bit after we did the Kickstarter as well. I tend not to use the locations that I've made up in the book that we've written. Like I'll use High Rise because I really like High Rise, and we'll get to why in a bit. I fucking love High Rise; it's great. But aside from High Rise, I'll just make everything else up, either on the spot, or it'll be like, oh, I'm going to take this concept here and jury rig it onto this bit here, and sort of make that all function. And I think like where we've got geography by domain, and like where we try to write in a way which hopefully you can use these locations as inspiration for your own. I think it's quite boring just to have a book where there's no examples, where there's nothing to sink your teeth into, which is kind of why we struggle with delves, as we mentioned in the previous episode. Because we can't afford to have any concrete delves and have the game hang together. But the landmarks, we wanted very much to present them as jewels for the GM to arrange for the players to stumble into. And if you've got any ideas for your own jewels, please make them, write them. Like, it's very straightforward. It's quite hard to get it wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, as you'll see in the landmark section, like the actual data block of a landmark is really simple. And honestly, it's mostly guessing.
Should we move on to the landmark section?
We probably should.
Okay, let's stop this one here. Landmarks.
One of the biggest bits of the game.
Yeah, it's about to say the meat and drink of the game, but it's more the plate of the game, if the classes are the meat and drink.
Yeah.
Landmarks are where the game takes place. There's some connections and stuff, and there's generally some drama, but we almost we expressly say if something's interesting, please make it a landmark.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's all temporary perils. Now, have we discussed haunts yet?
I don't believe we have. We've talked a little bit about going to havens to heal in the resources section, but not actually about what a haunt is. And so a haunt is a place you can go, a place, thing, or person to help heal both stress and fallout. And these cost resources. Now, that can be you buying drinks with money and barter and trade and such, or it can be you using sacred candles in a ritual or anything like that. It's not just necessarily a straight transaction. But each landmark that is a haven will have at least one haunt.
Some even that aren't havens have haunts. I think we wanted to that's the overall loop of the game is you go out, you get into trouble on a connection, and then go and get safe in a landmark.
Yeah,
and that's the overall gameplay loop. We've got some stuff on upgrading haunts. Initially, there was more of a kind of a town buildy feel.
We were going for a much more complex system. Like when it was first conceived, there were rules for building building a landmark out of absolutely nothing. You find a location, however you did that in the original version, and then slowly built it up. And you went, okay, I'm gonna put in a bakery here and this sort of stuff. And it was so complex and against the game.
Yeah, the game is about going and walking around.
Yeah, like not only are you essentially nomadic in this game, you're constantly on the move, but also it's a game about colonialism. Yeah, it got a bit much when we were like, cool, now you can just stick a flag in this and claim it as yours. We took a lot of the ideas and the good bits from it and merged those into Sanctum.
Yeah,
where you are at a haven and you use that as a base operations and you go out and come back. But this very much turned multiple sessions into, well, I'm going to build roads here so that the flow of traffic is good.
Yeah, like a fine game, but not one that we should write.
Yes, it just wasn't.
Someone else
hard.
should write that. Yeah. SimCities, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's an enjoyable experience, and there's something very pretty about. There's something very satisfying about building a machine to live in. That's kind of cool. I like that. But it was not for us. So we sawed everything down, and we were like, okay, so what are the ways in which we write fiction, and the way in which we write rules is like how is this going to interact with what players do all the time? We try to avoid edge cases, and if there's something which is going to be used one every 4 games, then can we roll that back into something else?
Yeah.
And so the way in which towns function is that they've got domains, which influences who's going to be more powerful there in terms of what domains you've got, and they've got haunts, which is useful for recovering stresses, for removing stresses from your character, and that's pretty much it. We've got some fiction attached to them, and that's kind of the fun bit. Honestly, it's coming out of the fiction. We've got about a page on making your own landmark and how to use them and what they provide. And I think that the one which I'm happiest with is wander, because the sanctuary, materials, advancement, employment, danger, and wander. And I think that it's quite easy to get lost in the idea that everything has to be functional.
Yeah,
and you can just have that wow, this place is fucking crazy. Go look at it.
Yeah, and it ties back into the last section where we were speaking about art.
Yeah.
Things can just be beautiful and weird and fun. They don't have to serve a purpose.
I've often spent a couple of minutes, let's say within the last month, staring at a tree, being like, oh, what a lovely tree this is.
Weeping at a sunrise.
Yeah, precisely. The sunrise is still beautiful. The sunset is still gorgeous, and then these are things which happen. I'm going to say at most once a day, but also at least once a day,
but with alarming regularity.
Yes, you can have floating shit, you can have strange portals, you can have crystalline monsters stomping around the place, which are like these behemoths, which sing to one another like whales. Cool, put it in. Doesn't have to do anything. It's fun to go poke.
Yeah, just bung stuff in and you'll have fun. It's great.
Something I'd like to mention on page 134 is we don't have any generic landmarks.
Yes, there's a short bullet point list of essentially, don't use these, they're boring.
Yeah. I think that if every landmark you've got is this massive assault on the senses, or hey, this place is crazy, this place is really weird, then I can see how you'd want something that's a bit more normal to sink back into. And that's fine, it's just we don't need to write it down.
Yeah. You can just knock that out.
We trust the GM to just sort of put it together.
So let's get into landmarks by tier. So first up, we have tier 0.
Yeah.
Which is not the heart.
No. It's heart adjacent.
Yeah, it's very close.
Yeah.
But this is Derelictus.
Yeah.
As it says in its title there. Derelictus, the city between. We call it the city between because, first off, Derelictus is massive. It's a really huge area of Spire. But the city above is Spire. It's this towering city. And the city below is all of Heart in all of its weirdness. And Derelictus is a bridge between the two. And it's in the sort of central platforms of the Vermissian that most adventures and campaigns will start. As you set off down into the darkness and the weirdness, there's this bustling sense of commodity and commerce around it. As people have set up these bars and places to buy fine swords and stout armor, and honestly make a lot of money out of substandard goods.
Yeah, like really terrible stuff.
Because they're not getting them back.
Yeah. It's an interesting switch because in Spire, Derelictus is kind of the lowest of the low, and we're focusing on like, it's this crazy run-down, nightmarish tunnel world where they've got like mystery cults run by orphans and urban legends where these giant albino spiders come and take you, and the Elfir arrive and hunt you through the streets, and that's true for Spire because like Spire's a pretty shitty place to live, but there's a lot worse than Spire, namely Heart. And so Derelictus becomes this sort of cosmopolitan wonderland where you've got things like, what? Drinkable water?
I can just buy an onion?
Reliable gravity? A one-headed dog?
This door doesn't hate me.
We detail Derelictus a lot more in Burned and Broken.
Yep.
Which we again one of our supplements, and that was really good fun actually, thinking of it in terms of what challenges it posed and what sanctuaries it offered. I really like that. But also, if you're interested, you can look at Strata, which is the supplement we did for Spire, which goes into it in great depth and gives you rules if you want to if you want to be an ex-child mystery cultist.
Yes, it does.
I would also like to very very briefly note here that on the top of page 137, right hand side, you can see our naming convention for House Grindle, where we just pick a word we like.
Yes, I have a text document.
Oh, do you?
Called Grindle Names.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, hang on. Let's see if Grindle Names. I will now read you the text document of my Grindle Names. These are ones I don't believe we've used, but these are all real words, and you just append Grindle to the end. Amicable, bombast, cacophony, celebrant, eloquence, epiphany, epoch, euphoria, furtive, illicit, incandescent, limerence, oblivion, opulence, perfidious, pyrrhic, relentless, reverie, scurrilous, serendipity, sonder, superfluous, syzygy, transcendent, vehement, vicarious, and zealous.
What's that one? Not liminal. What's the one?
Limerence.
Yeah, what's limerence?
I'm going to quickly Google it because I've forgotten.
I know, but I'm going to search for something else.
The state of mind which results from a romantic attraction to another person and typically includes obsessive thoughts and fantasies and a desire to form or maintain a relationship.
Oh, like an infatuation.
Yeah.
Or a crush.
It is a limerence.
What a great word. Yeah, limerence Grindle.
But incandescent Grindle, perfidious Grindle, reverie Grindle. You pick a good word.
Delightful.
And then you bung Grindle after it. And you're done. That's how they name their kids.
So I figure we're probably not going to go through each of these landmarks in turn. I think we're going to sort of mention ones which we have something to say about.
Yep. And one thing I'm going to do, though, is just quickly with Derelictus, I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about the structure of it.
Oh, please.
So you've got, right at the beginning, you've got name, tier, and data, like domains. The default stress. If you don't know how much damage something does, you just use the default stress. It's got your haunts. It's got that sort of stuff. Then you get a nice description. Then any special rules for that haven. And again, this is something for that location. And this is something you can bung on your own as you make it. The special rule for Derelictus is that you can remove all your stress if you spend a few days there. Because you're not in the heart. Then it talks about what resources are available. And this is another place that we put in a lot of world building. Because what you can nick out of it is actually fairly important.
Yeah.
And then there's a section on potential plots, which is NPCs, factions that are there. And any one of these, you can just go, yeah, that's all right. I'll use that as an adventure and let the players do the rest.
they'll find their fun on side missions, as it
Yeah.
were.
Absolutely.
You will get 2 plot hooks from every player every session.
Yes. And one thing I will say as we go through these landmarks, a lot of them are Spire in-jokes.
Oh, yeah?
You don't have to know Spire to enjoy the landmark, but it helps in some cases. For instance, on the next couple of pages, on page 139, you'll find Labyrinth. And Labyrinth is demonological viral curse, which is the disease, and it's odd. But that first cropped up with regularity in Eidolon Sky.
Yes, it was the side effect of some demon drugs.
Yeah.
Which made you build labyrinths. Yeah, I was really getting into the idea of viruses that make you do things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Labyrinth. There's also the Carnival later on in the monsters section. Yeah, I really love the idea of like a plague that is transmitted via disease.
Yeah.
There's something really exciting about that. So we have Labyrinth.
You can completely understand Labyrinth without having read Eidolon Sky.
Yeah.
But if you've read Eidolon Sky, you go, oh, this is that thing.
Oh, there you go.
And you already have an extra layer of knowledge in your head. And like, as you'll see with Labyrinth, sometimes you get extra fallout specific to the landmark, which is always fun.
By necessity, the landmarks in Heart are a bit grab baggy because we figure you're going to pick out the ones which make sense to you and populate your game with them. So like Redcap Grove is a place where druids grow magic mushrooms and then sell them, and they've set up a sort of government. Not government. What's the word? Organised crime league.
Yes, as it says, it's the most prolific and best regarded drug farm.
And that, I think, like that's really a holdover from Spire as well, in that we take fantasy tropes and then sort of get a little dirt on them.
Yeah, and also you'll know it's tier 1.
Yeah.
So it's not weird yet, like fully weird. There's still an essence of humanity about it.
I would also like to briefly mention here Resonance Chamber 5. It's really hard to write deep apiarist landmarks.
Yes, it is.
It's super difficult. So there's 3 in the game, and this is one of them. We've certainly implied the existence of Resonance Chambers 1 through 4, but it might just be like the way that the Brits numbered their tanks in World War II, and we're just trying to throw off the Germans. They're very hard to write for the deep apiarists because they're so fucking weird.
Yeah.
We really struggle with that, but hopefully we've got some fun stuff. We've got the Temple of the Moon Beneath, which we talked a lot about in the Heretics section.
Yep, but fairly important location for Heretics.
Now, I will say, there's a chap, I forget his name, he's thanked in the thanks section at the back, but he came up with the idea of having different temples for each of the drow, each of the Dominic virtues, which was genius.
Oh, just so helpful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, dude. So we nicked that idea and had them, and so we got to make all of them a bit shit.
I mean, some of them are highly effective at being awful.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like there's the one which is expressly awful on tier 3, and like you can't breathe there, and it's supposed to be about suffering and endurance. But like I like where's the one? There's the one that has this Temple of Sagacity, I believe. Where is it?
We'll get to that on its tier. We've got 4 here we can talk about because it has one of my absolute favourite NPCs, which is Derwent Swake.
Poor old Derwent.
Derwent Swake is at Choloris, the Temple of Fury, and Derwent did very well personifying the Damnic virtue of Fury, and got blessed. Now they keep him alive and underneath the temple.
Just bleeding
him for his blood. And drawing power from him. Like, poor Swake. Like this is seen as an honour by those in the Temple of Fury. Like, aren't you
by Swake.
No, God no.
Yeah. And so it's like to take the idea of like, oh, there's this chapel of slaughter, this chapel of fury, and like actually it's from this mercenary police officer who things got out of hand and neither side really wants him. And so like both both the hounds and the witches who were attacking, I think, teamed up to bring him down, and then one side turned on the other. But it's very much like one of the things which I find which turns me off a lot about, like, if you look at like grand sci-fi and grand fantasy, is the scale and the scope of this of the this grand temple to the blood god, and it's miles and miles of skulls. It's like, no, I want like 18 skulls. I can understand 18 skulls.
Yeah, and like having the Temple of Fury, the easy road would have been to go, well, it's a load of like frenzied berserkers. Right? And honestly, most of the people at the Temple of Fury are fairly calm people.
Sword makers mainly.
Yeah, so they trade in swords that have been used because they need murder weapons for their rituals. They need weapons that have killed people, that have been used in fury. And so they will take in this dented, mangled old weapon, as long as it's been used to kill somebody, and trade it for a perfectly new one. And I love that image. You know, the Temple of Fury are fairly calm, but they're just getting their fury in other ways, in ways that they can measure.
They're trading swords.
In litres of blood and counts of armaments.
Yeah. The Sagacity, the Temple of Sagacity is on this tier, actually, thankfully.
Okay.
Which is I think the gag we had was that they believe that if you are not arguing something, you are bringing shame to the goddess.
Yeah.
And so there always has to be, like, it's a bit like Speaker's Corner, or like someone gets up on their soapbox and has a shout. It's that, but forever.
Yeah.
And people take turns, and initially it was like these refugees from the city above who were giving these great and almost like rabbinical presentations, these treatises on the nature of faith, and now it's this guy who's like, I reckon they're putting piss in the water.
Yep, but it's just gotten out of hand.
But that all counts.
And honestly, like that sense of extreme is something that we put in a lot. Like the ever lovely Ranvest Temple of Vigilance is the Temple of Vigilance. So everybody there is a spy, and they've got nobody to spy on anymore, so they're just spying on each other. And I'd like to just call out the Haunts because they point out exactly how infighty the place is and how petty it's become. There's a doctor who doesn't tell you their name and asks you too many questions. A bar accessed by whispering a correct password into a bookcase. A person claiming to be a witch. A general store with extensive catalogue but no actual stock. And the least secure confessional in the city beneath. Every single person in Ranvest knows the password to the bar. Everyone. Like they could just leave the door open, but that's not how they work. And they're all shit.
Yeah.
Because they're spying on spies who know they're being spied on. So they're not actually getting any better. It's just it's ridiculous, and it's gone to extremes and gone slightly mad.
I've also the tower is quite high concept.
It is a bit.
All right, I went on a bit. It's a very small spire we put in Heart. If you want some spire, we have little bits of spire. It's inspired very much by the film High Rise. Unlike
while High Rise isn't.
Yeah, the location High Rise is largely inspired by 28 Days Later, I think. Like lots of big abandoned tower blocks, but the tower is I don't know, man. It's a nice little story. If anyone uses it, please write in. Yeah,
like it's one I don't think I'll ever use just because I don't have time.
No, and it is definitely high concept, and I think that like it's more sort of showing you, well, like, here's what you can do down here.
Yeah.
If you wanted something, and like, I think it would make a really interesting game, like to operate out of Sanctum, like to have a game where an angel comes to try and destroy it, or maybe not angels, maybe the paladins arrive to try and destroy it from up spire.
Yeah, and it contrasts nicely with the next one in the book, which is the Tunnels of Wet Filth.
Great name.
Which is just awful.
That's an example of a placeholder name that stuck around.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, all it is just a really shitty place full of awful, vile excrement. And like half crocodiles that will eat you, maybe.
Bad scene.
I mean, like, the leader is called Brother Colostomy.
It's gross. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, but the big thing about it is it's short and it's easy to replicate. Like, it's an example of what you can come up with by just taking two things and putting them together.
Like a T-shirt, a Comic-Con.
Like a comic T-shirt, yeah.
Should we move on to tier 2?
Let's do tier 2 now, where we get one of the best named places in the game. A Vulse.
Which is, yes, we had to look up a Vulse.
A Vulse is the term for essentially tearing away from a mooring. It's almost specifically used in medical terms for like tearing a tendon away from a bone. Oh,
it's a great word. Plus, I got to name the central NPC Barreless Scrum, and
you described him as a red wet lump, which is a wonderful contrast to red wet heaven.
There's a lot of red wetness in the book.
There's a lot of red wetness. You're working through some stuff. I'm
clearly working through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A Vulse is us sort of talking about cleavers a bit and trying to get some Cursed and Wild in there. Gorin is the first of the Kickstarter backer landmarks.
Yes, and beautifully illustrated.
Yeah, so you'll note that the Kickstarter backer ones run quite long.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, they're generally about a page, maybe a little bit under. Especially Papilius Both later on, you'll see this as well. And I think like looking back on it now, I feel that perhaps they are overwritten a little bit, because I wanted to give someone had paid honestly a large amount of money to have their own landmark in the book, and we've got and they are illustrated because Felix is also commissioned to do an art piece for us, and so I think I want to justify that.
Mm-hmm.
And work with I was keen for us both to work with with whatever idea that the person who commissioned it came to us with, but then also to take that and make it fit the setting.
Yeah, and I think it came out really well. Gorin's great because everybody's the same person.
It's got a punchline, unlike most landmarks.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a solid location.
We do actually. Interesting point. We mentioned meat puppets.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have a lot more meat puppets in the Heart.
There were a lot of meat puppets.
Like blanks, we called them, and they were copies of people that the Heart had made for basically research purposes.
Yeah, so they could test things on them.
Yeah, and I think it didn't really feel. It felt a bit sci-fi, honestly.
Yeah.
I think so. We pulled back from that. I'd much rather have hallucinations, but Gorin is the Cornish word for spider.
Ah.
Or spider web, I believe it's for spider.
Cornish coming in strong again.
Mm-hmm. Humans in Heart are from Cornwall.
Basically, yeah.
That is broadly canon. We've got Grin Station, which is a giant underground fairground.
Yes.
I think this was the subject of one of the first complaints.
Really?
I saw so this guy rocked up on the Discord, and he was saying I don't buy it, I don't get this. The Heart's this crazy, weird liminal space in Spire, and it's dark and strange and unknown, and you're telling me there's a fairground in it? And I was like, oh, okay, that's fair. And I think we took the Ferris wheel out.
Well, I mean, honestly, what if I told you that one of the largest places for commerce in the world has a roller coaster in it?
Well, I would believe that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Mall of America, the fact that it has an entire amusement park in it is insane.
I've been on that roller coaster.
It's bonkers.
I hurt my spine.
I can imagine. It can't be a good roller coaster.
It was a Snoopy roller coaster, and that hound done me a mischief in my downstairs.
But it's in a station. It was originally designed as a location to go. You know, it was
something fun for the poor to do.
Crystal Palace, that sort of thing. You know.
Plus, I get to mention Tupney Falls, which I imagine will really throw off any Americans reading the book.
That possibly will, yeah.
Tupney Falls. I don't know whether you have them in America, but it's a sort of. Can you describe Tupney Falls?
So a Tupney Fall is you push a penny in at the top of a machine.
Well, Tupney.
All
right.
And then it pachinkos its way down a load of pegs. And at the bottom, there's a tray that's moving in and out rhythmically.
It's got no lip on the end.
Yeah, and what happens is the coin will land flat and then either hopefully fall over the edge, more likely get stuck. And the idea is to push coins over the edge so that it unbalances the next layer down where there's loads of coins, and that falls out of a slot, and then you get a load of coins that you can then either, I guess, turn into real money, or you push back in the machine.
Throw in a river. I don't know what you're going to do with 22 2-pence pieces.
Yeah, and like sometimes they'll put like little toy cars on the money and things as little prizes.
Like a watch or something. Yeah. But that is like
a 13-year-old iPod.
Now, I've got to presume a lot of the tuppennies, and like you get 10-penny falls as well. I think I saw a 50p one, which
for
is
the big spenders.
Like bloody hell, 50p.
Too rich for my blood.
Yeah, good Christ. I mean, just take a heroin instead. But and like obviously some of them are glued to the thing, so they won't fall off. I understand. They've got to make their money somehow. It's out of idiots like me.
With crimes.
With crimes. Wow, barely. I mean, carnival crimes barely crime.
That is true.
A sort of like, I don't know, rambling embezzlement. The point is you can see the odds of what's happening, and you put the coin in and you have no real bearing over where that coin ends up.
No, you can try and shift where it is, but basically it's timing and luck.
But you still feel accomplished when you knock down the penny. You get wonderful. Anyway, sorry. There's those, and they're 3 times the height of a drow, and you'll get caught in them.
Basically, what we're saying is fly to England, go to Brighton Pier, and spend the rest of your day on some Tuppenny Falls and fly home.
Now, I will say this is the only place in Hart where you can get porn.
Yes, what the surf witnessed.
A faded reel of smut. Video porn as well, which I like. Or I suppose, like, I don't know whether
GIF porn.
Yeah, it's a sort of zoetrope. Yeah, Chris, can you talk to me about Hallow?
Oh, Hallow, joyous home of the Blood Witches and Spire.
Chris's favourite class.
Yeah, Hallow is the kind of church community, basically, of the witches. And it's where their leaders are and where they do all their bizarre rituals. And it has one of my absolute favourite chain reaction rules in the game. Because what happens when you startle a blood witch, i.e. cause them fallout, they'll change into their nightmare form. And what's going to be more startling to another blood witch than seeing somebody else suddenly change into their nightmare form? So just very occasionally you get these huge ripples where the entire of Hallow shifts into nightmare.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I used to live in the countryside in Portugal. We used to live on top of a hill in the centre of this large valley. And on occasion, if I was feeling difficult, I'd go up and stand on the roof and whistle and set off every dog in a 10-mile radius. Because the dogs would set each other off, and I like that. But it's like witches in a large but not large enough auditorium.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that like a couple of people accidentally die.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like probably not. Probably like accidentally.
Yeah, and like definitely not witches, but people who aren't witches who are there and just are caught in the knives.
I want to talk about High Rise. High Rise was the first piece of setting that I wrote for Heart. And
I'm honestly impressed you cut it down from the 11 pages.
It was 5 pages?
It was long.
It was long. And I wrote a detail. So like I wrote it up as though it was a district in Spire. So I talked about like I think that there were 2 different cults that were operating there. There were some baddies. There was a crow. There was the principle that like they would write that like they had a death a death sect which they worshipped.
There were the blanks.
There were the blanks who were operating on there. There were the ghosts in the middle stages, and like everything. Like I just really like the idea of because what High Rise is. There's like 30 story buildings, and anything below the 27th story is haunted to fuck, and you can't live in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you end up with these islands suspended in the middle of the sky, or suspended like stuck 30 feet in the 30 stories in the air. And it's just this really cool image, and so I keep coming back to it. I keep setting games there, and I wrote up this massive detail stuff, and Chris was like, I really like this. It reads like Spire.
Yeah.
And I just basically written a Derelictus district, and we had to get much looser. We had to get like much less defined.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too detailed. It was great. Like, do not get me wrong, but we had nowhere to put it all.
Yeah, precisely. And I think like bringing it down to like we were still trying to figure out how to write it and how to get this information across. And with Spire, we were really used to saying, so we're going to group this by domain, and then every large area in a domain gets like 4 to 6 pages of stuff. Maybe an illustration, probably an illustration, and you get like, or there's 4 hooks on each page and a couple of gags.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
a box out. And then we changed to something much more different for this. This is much more fluid, and it's like a. I think on the Discord today, someone described the settings in Spire, and especially Heart, as a sort of buffet for the GM.
Yeah, that's about it.
Which is nice. Yeah.
I mean, in the tone of that buffet feeling, where you'll occasionally get an olive in the meat. Mm-hmm. There's the Horde.
And Last Orders, which are both different versions of the same gag.
Yeah. And the Horde is batshit, honestly. It's a library with a dragon in it.
Mm.
What?
It's kind of a dragon lava.
Yeah,
dragon,
a larval dragon, yeah.
Yeah. A little babby dragon, which is still the size of it's a maggot the size of a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Armored maggot the size of a horse. And it's dreamed a library into existence around it because it wants stories.
Yes. And you can get stuck there being a librarian.
Yeah.
And it's bonkers, but when I mentioned earlier that one of the things that the landmarks in the book do is talk about scope.
Mm.
Like, this is at the weirder end.
Yeah.
Like, this shows you can do weird fantasy with this if you want.
Yeah. But you're basically reading bedtime stories to a tetchy baby,
yeah,
who happens to be able to dream the world into. It's like that Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, and do enormous mind domination, but only to make you a librarian.
Similarly, Last Orders.
Oh yes, the pub what eats you.
I think Last Orders is very much the poster child for Heart.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's certainly a predatory buildings.
Yes,
but yes.
Because like we'd seen D&D, we'd seen mimics, we'd seen cloakers, we'd seen the floor that eats you, we'd seen the bridge that gets up and stomps you to death, and we're like, whatever, small fry, don't care. We want a pub, and the pub is a pitcher plant, and you get digested in the basement.
And I think that if we look at the picture, there are 2 things that I'd specifically like to call out on this. First off, Last Orders provides amenities. Like, this is a predatory building that still has an outhouse.
It's nice.
And secondly, if you get eaten by Last Orders, you're an idiot. Because the pub sign is teeth. It's just teeth.
It's just, like, it tried to warn you.
Like, you can see that building smiling at you. And it's a functional pub. It's got some nice stuff in there, and it's got probably my favourite resource joke that we did.
What's that?
So the resources you can get from Last Orders are a dusty bottle of Disteran Red, dated before the Elfair took Spire, D10, Haven Fragile, and a brand new bottle of Disteran Red, still settling, dated before the Elfair took Spire, D4, Haven Fragile, increased dice size by 1 for every year that passes. That's never going to happen.
Absolutely not. No,
unless you do some time stuff.
We would have to leave it in the barrel for it to actually
and not mix it up.
Yeah. Okay. Still, solid gag. I really like it. I think it's like there's a session there, and I quite like the idea of setting a murder mystery in Heart, and it turns out it was the pub.
It's a murder mystery, and there's a butler convention on, and it's the pub what did it.
There's the Red Market.
I think you've just skipped over one, which is the Machines of Dust, which is another of those in-jokes where if you've read some of Spire, you'll get more of those. Because that's the dust machines, cleverly concealed by turning the words around.
From Blood and Dust. Mm-hmm. It's an upgraded version of Blood and Dust, except we remove what the machines do.
Yeah.
We've got the Red Market, and I think this is one of my favourite pieces of art.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which Felix did. I think it's one of the first ones he did as well. It's definitely one of the first crowd scenes.
Yeah.
And I like how everyone's different heights. I like that massive fucker at the back.
That big bastard at the back, and the wee baby in the jar.
Yeah. What? Like, okay, so a pickled baby, I can understand, and you've got kind of like a little goblin-looking guy in the centre. Okay, I can sort of get my head around that. Who's that guy? And like, from having that giant dude at the back, I'm like, oh, it's like Bloodborne, isn't it? Oh, I get it.
And also, there's just eyes and teeth in the dead centre. I don't know what that is, but I don't like its face. It
feels scary and dense, and there's kind of a feathered snake around that dude's arm. I think we started with the Red Market, then went on to Incarnadines.
Yeah, we had the sketch for Incarnadines and what we wanted them to do, but yeah, I think the sketch did come first.
I will also say that every Incarnadine by law has a red word as their first name. Mm-hmm. So Carmine Hypatia, Rubius Crofa, and Vermilius Destera.
Vermilius.
You have to have a word which means red. I would also recommend just looking up the different words for red because they're delicious.
They are very
Oxblood.
Good.
Yeah.
Good name.
Yeah, similarly, the Red Market used to be really much longer than that.
A lot, yeah.
And I took a cleaver to it and mashed it up and just sort of, okay, we'll cut everything down because we don't need to talk too much about this. Leave this up to the players.
Yeah. And then we've got Sightless, which is another of the Temple of Virtues, which is basically a trap town. If you like traps, just bung your players in Sightless. But I think when you talk about one of the most important landmarks in the game,
what's that?
Swinefall.
Sung to the tune of is it Skyfall?
Skyfall, yeah.
Skyfall. You'll get an eyeful
of pig meat. So this is a place that's just like a slaughterhouse for pigs, and there's pig ghosts.
This is inspired by there's a section in Perdido Street Station, which is a book which I've read once and don't intend to read again, but I had a very good time. Well, I don't even know whether that's true. I definitely read it.
And it has been consumed.
But there is I think it's called the Rungate Rampant, which is the kind of their illegal anti-establishment newspaper. One of the characters is a reporter for the Rungate Rampant, and her editor, like as part of a cover and for a day job, her editor works at a slaughterhouse, and so she meets him in this sort of this red sluice-like room where a pig gets thrown down a giant chute so its legs break, and then he kills it and butchers it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, "Oh, that's horrid! Can I have that?" That's really oh man, they threw it down a chute. And so yeah, I really like the idea of this. Like, I think Swinefall's the grimmest shit we've got. Like, not only is it a slaughterhouse, but it's full of the ghosts of pigs.
Yeah.
Should we break here? Because we've been recording for 40 minutes at this point before we go on to the next tier.
Yeah.
Teardrops on a fire takes me, makes me wiser. That's correct. We're dropping down a tier to tier 3.
That was pretty good.
It wasn't, but thank you very much.
I'm happy with it. I think you did well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're here to talk about tier 3 and beneath.
We are.
Tier 3 is a bad place where you oughtn't go. Tier 3 is very much the sort of the end point of our ideas with this, in that we just kept coming up with stupid concepts.
Yeah, Tier 3 gets weird.
I think the weirdest bit is so Briar kind of makes sense. Like an underground forest.
Briar is indicative of why we needed a Tier 3. Because it was basically a grab bag place of all of the weird ideas, like the really strange stuff that we were like,
Yeah.
I like this. I think it's good. I think it's fun, but it doesn't necessarily fit. Like it doesn't hold the same sort of tone. So Briar is very fairy tale. It's hunters and it's, Granny's cottage is there and things like that.
I think it was originally called The Woods.
It was just called The Woods, and there was the wolf.
Yeah, we had the wolf there.
Yeah. But it kind of evolved into something a bit more on brand. And a couple of the places in Tier 3 are like that. They've evolved from ideas, and it's just too, honestly, in some cases, wacky to go elsewhere.
I think the one which I want to bring up is Cairnmore.
I love Cairnmore.
So Cairnmore is, I think it was a very early one I wrote, back when Heart wasn't quite as solidified, I think, in terms of being on brand. And Cairnmore there's this undying skeleton king who's absolutely off his tits on narcotic nectar, on like alcoholic nectar.
Ambrosia.
And he and his courtiers, you don't really like him that much. I'm just spending eternity there getting drunk, and you can go and steal some of it.
Yep.
It was quite. I think that's much closer to the idea of taking the piss out of a dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
As opposed to making our own thing.
This entry was also a lot longer.
Oh my days! Yeah, we had stats for the courtiers.
We
do have them somewhere. Yeah. Tier 3 was quite underpopulated by the time we hit there, because it's quite hard to get crazy weird with this stuff and have it still hang together. It's like not so weird that it becomes a fracture. No, is it fracture? Yeah, that's the word. Isn't it? Yeah, not so weird that it becomes sort of an offshoot, a different dimension, but something weird enough to warrant Tier 3. So like Ghastling Plane was something which has hung around for a while. The Maw has come out from Spire, from the Worshippers of the Hungry Deep. But we went through, and much like with the earlier tiers where you can see like the Deep Aperist stuff which we've put in there, we wanted to try and to show the power factions in the city, in the heart, through locations, which is why we've got the Bunker and Cairnmore and the Terminus, not Cairnmore, sorry, Terminus for the Vermissian Sages and Wadstone Nazanov for the Deep Apiarists, to sort of show this is as far as people get.
Yeah, this is it. Like, you don't. Well, maybe people go further, but you don't really talk about them anymore.
It's kind of there's an element of abandon all hope, but you're probably embrace all hope. I guess is probably a better idea.
Yeah, generally speaking,
it might turn out okay.
It's also got the last of the Damnic temples in it, Sufri, which is
sounds
just
like a terrible place.
Awful. Like it's intentionally bad, and people intentionally spend time there. It's such a bad idea.
In your own Tier 3 ideas, I recommend putting maybe a sky in, because we didn't put a sky in anywhere that's within the heart and not a fracture, and I think we missed out a trick there.
Yeah, I mean, I quite often use skies on Tier 2 and down.
Yeah, you like a sky.
I do like a sky. I like having a very small location, having a day-night cycle.
Yeah, that is fun.
And whether or not it matches anything like the surface, like it could be 20 minutes long, and just basically strobe you to death. but I love how weird you can get with like yes, you can see 2 moons. I'm sorry, what? Tier 3 is where weirdness goes to die.
Yeah. Well, Blossom.
Yes.
Yeah. We've got Rogue. Rogue is, honestly, I'll be honest with you, kind of an afterthought. We needed something. We needed a category for fractures which could turn up anywhere, or for places which could turn up anywhere, which weren't stuck to a particular zone.
Yeah. So
I'll quite commonly change the tiers of stuff when I run it and make it more or less weird appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a little tip which we should have put in the book.
Ideally, yeah.
Here, like what it's become is Majimal, who is a character from Spire. She's in the heart, I think, or definitely on the boundaries of like out of Derelictus towards the heart. So we wanted to give her a bit more of a discussion because she's cool. She's a blood witch and a midwife, which is, I guess Maggie Mel's kind of like our author insert Mary Jane character.
I guess in a weird way. Like I definitely don't want to be them.
Hello, listener. Grant here. I meant Mary Sue rather than Mary Jane. Carry on. Oh no, or even one of her pets.
No. But
you do get clothes.
She's got all the traits that we really like in Spire and Heart.
There's the room, which is honestly seems like a sci-fi miniseries.
I mean, there is that sci-fi miniseries called The Room, which is this.
No, that's about the different god artifacts, right?
Yes, that come from The Room. That's what makes them special. Well,
this is like that, except the artifacts aren't special and the room just keeps cropping up and spreading itself.
Yes.
I like the idea of like invasive architecture.
Yeah,
like
I mean that's
non-native architecture.
That's what the Grindel hunting clubs are, which are also rogue.
Yes.
They were going to be much more central. Central's a long word, but they were going to be much more common.
They were going to be a power structure.
Yeah.
The hunters.
And they'd be dotted about the heart, and you'd be like just walking along this awful tunnel that looks like a colon, and there'd just be a charming looking little shack, and you go inside and it's a palatial little country club inside with people checking your membership and then shooting you in the face if you don't have one.
But I think like it felt a bit safe.
Yeah, that's the thing, it did feel a bit safe.
It was for posh people with money, and I didn't really like that, so we took the hunter class out of the game and sort of maybe rolled off some of their skills into different classes. But we've kept it here because we kept them in as monsters. In that we have Lady Salvacious Grindel, who is one of the legendary monsters later on. She went full Apocalypse Now.
Oh yeah, she definitely became Heart of Darkness. Right.
That would have been an interesting thing to explore. I know we've got Fractures, which is where I just really went off on one.
You did love the Fractures.
I fucking love Fractures, man. I like other worlds, and I like shit other worlds.
Yeah, and
I like
the Heart is a prime place to put them.
Yeah, I was chatting about this on Twitter, and like Heart isn't low fantasy. It's what if high fantasy was shit?
Yeah, what if it was grot?
That puts you in a really good mindset of like, no, it's fantastical. It's just bad, and not necessarily in a sort of endlessly grim way like Warhammer is. It's just not very good at its job. I like
because the Warhammer universe is grimdark. Like if something's got a skull on it and could be dripping blood, it's absolutely got a skull on it and dripping blood. Whereas here it's just stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah, and maybe it once worked, or maybe it never worked, and everyone's just been sort of trying.
Yeah, the Vermissian is like the poster child of that, right?
Yeah, if you compare our trains to Eberron's trains.
Eberron's trains are just these astonishing pieces of magical engineering.
And they exist?
And our trains just never ran. Not like they tried and they blew up or something. No, they didn't get a chance.
What's your favourite Fracture, Chris? Oh, actually, what's your favourite Heaven? I think that's what the Fractures what they're really about.
Well, no, because there's things like Papilius Both.
That's really good art. I do like the art.
Yeah, it's one of our backer ones and has too many egg sacs for me. So
it's gross.
I really like the Forest. I think the Forest is my favourite of the Heavens because it's beyond primal.
Pre-primal.
Yeah, it's like, what if you take the primal wilderness and then find the primal version of that?
Yeah.
And then get people who, are civilized, as it were. Like, they drink out of cups. And send them there. They have no idea what's going on, and then they see a dragonfly the size of a town buzzing at them. It's so difficult for players to interact with. Not necessarily in like a narrative story way, but like, I mean, characters, not players. Like, they're so out of their depth. Like the Grail Road, there's people they recognise.
See, I love the Grail Road. That's my favourite one.
The Grey Road is really good.
Because it's very human.
Absolutely.
What if a Cormac McCarthy film was the afterlife?
Yes.
And so you just keep... What I will say, I've never seen a Cormac McCarthy film. I only know that he recorded The Road, and so that's the, thing I'm coming from. But it's very much... It's this ceaseless trudge towards a possible heaven.
Yeah. As long as you're cool.
That's not that anyone can get there. It's just if you happen to be a Wanderer King, you get to have things like a sword and working shoes.
Yeah, and you can still get mugged for them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I like. I really like the idea that you also have to know how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be people who've been there for an eternity stealing rusted swords off people. None of the heavens are nice.
No,
that's the other thing.
And the fact that, if you're a drow, let's say, you can go to heaven and then come back.
Mm.
And it's not like the standard ideal of the Christian heaven where it's literally perfect.
Mm.
And, I can only imagine somebody that's gone to heaven and come back being utterly destroyed at the state of things.
Yeah. That's what you had waiting for you.
Yeah, and then you're back here in this.
Yeah.
In 2020. And that's nightmarish. But you can go to heaven and go, oh, is this all that's waiting for me?
Yeah.
This is what I get if I'm a good person.
I think there's something quite pleasingly satanic about that.
Mm.
And no, actually, I'm going to try and get something now. Then.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only, in quotation marks, good heaven is the Elfit one.
Moon Garden. Oh, well, I mean, so the Moon Garden is nice in that it soporifically dulls you. You can't really feel pain or boredom or whatever, and you sit in the moonlight forever. And that's pretty chill.
Yeah.
The Elfir one, you do drown.
Yeah, but...
For years.
Yeah, so... The reason I say that the Slumbering Depths are the good one is because it shaped the Elfir so much.
Mm.
Because they know that the afterlife is boring and suffering. They're these extreme bon vivants during life. And that feels about right.
Yeah.
It's fitting. The
fun
drow afterlife is a laudanum heaven,
or a sort of, I don't know, Gormenghasti, Necromunda, Hades. Actually, it's more like Hades, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of like on the dark side of the moon, where there's just these swarms of ghosts and spectres staring into the good side of the moon, trying to get in.
Like looking into an aquarium.
Yeah. That's where most people are going to end up. That's your purgatory. And it was really nice to take the ideas of the cultures that we'd explored so far in Heart and Spire, and then say, well, what's their what do they think is good? What's a reward to them?
And the Red Moon is just a war zone.
The Red Moon literally takes place in Dark Souls.
Here they sit, flame-crowned and looking out over domains of blackened brick and endless lakes of blood, waiting for the blood moon to shine in the skies once more, so they might be called to the world below to enact glorious vengeance from beyond the veil of death.
I wrote that on holiday. I was supposed to be on a holiday and I was doing that on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
And then you got the Palace Multifaceted, which is my favourite heaven.
Yeah,
I think of the drow style heavens, because the forest is it predates all of these heavens. These are newer heavens by comparison, and it is the definition of heaven, which you can afford it. If you got the coin, it's a great heaven, but everything costs money.
My favourite trick was when we figured that the Incarnadines would definitely set up legal documents which ensure contributions are made in their name after death.
Yeah, so that they'd keep getting an influx of cash.
There's something quite pleasing about it, your eternal reward, which isn't.
Yes. I mean, as long as the checks keep coming in, Buster.
Yeah. Shall we move on to adversaries?
I think we probably should.
Yeah. Or do you want to mention the source at all? as like an atheist heaven.
So the source is atheist heaven, right? It's the knowledge afterlife.
Yeah.
Battery.
Compost?
It's a
Some
battery.
Compost. Yeah, it's a battery. It's a battery, and your soul goes there when you die.
Yeah. It's also real.
Yeah.
Like, rather than the moon, the facets of the moon, which are other planes, basically, the source is that you can go and stand outside the source.
Yeah. I mean, technically, you could go to the moon.
Yes, but like it is a sort of pyramidal ziggurat structure in the real world.
Yeah.
This impervious structure that it maintains charge with souls.
You could theoretically walk there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do you much good. I mean, you get a nice view from the top, but
yeah. The other thing, and we're gonna just part the curtain here a little bit, sort of give you a little secret. This is where demons come from.
Yeah.
This is the source is the source of all demonology, and basically Knowles have worked out how to do it clean.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think perhaps because they've been sitting in a pyramid full of it for years, they extract it like a sort of wireless electricity and use it to power shit, and that's really sensible. And the Elfir have to do it by giving you a poem you can never forget, which makes your legs turn into, I don't know, fucking vultures.
Yeah, because the way we've got demons set up, and I honestly can't remember if we actually fully explain it at any point. I'm not sure we do.
No, we don't. No, we deliberately say, here are a few ideas for what demons are, and then we picked one and didn't tell anyone.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you the one we didn't tell you in the book, is that demonology and demons are just forces. Electricity, like that sort of thing. And it's only the output or the eidolon that shapes it into something specific.
Think of the eidolon like one of those sort of stencils you put over the end of a Play-Doh squisher.
Yeah, and it extrudes it into a shape and personality.
Mm-hmm.
And people have named it, and the more that people have named it, the more it's entered the collective unconscious. So the more people are likely to see it as this. But at the end of the day, what you're dealing with is raw electricity, like the strong and weak atomic forces, that sort of thing. Yeah. Like it's base chaos force, not a real thing. So yeah.
Adversaries. You've been listening to the Director's Commentary podcast for Heart, The City Beneath. I was Grant Howitt, and I was joined by Christopher Taylor, and we wrote the Heart RPG. For more information on Heart and our other titles, go to rrdgames.com.